Masechet Kiddushin, Daf Ayin. The Mishnah taught 10 different categories of people that came from Bavel and made Aliyah to Eretz Yisrael. So we continue. Gereh v'harureh. Two of the categories are converts and slaves that were freed, that are similar to converts. Min elan. How do you know that such people came to Eretz Yisrael? Amar Rav Chisda, Amar Kera v'chol hanibdal mitum'at goyeh haaretz alehem. In the book of Ezra, it talks about the people that separated themselves from the impurities of the other nations that are in the land, meaning that they were apparently foreigners, non-Jews, and they separated from that tum'ah, and they came and decided to convert, direct conversion, or through were slaves and were freed and are now Jewish, and they came and joined, and they joined with Korban Pesach, and they joined Israel. So there you see those categories. Mamzereh. There were also mamzerim that came from Bavel and went to Israel. Minalan, how do you know? Dichtiv Ishmasan balat ha'choroni v'Toviyah ayved ha'amoni. So there's a guy named Toviyah, and he is named as an Ammonite slave, meaning that apparently his father was some Ammonite slave, and so he is an Ammonite slave. וכתיב כי רבים ביהודה בעלי שבועה לו כי חתנו לשחניה בן ערך ויוחנן בנו לקח את בת משולם בן ברכיה. This guy Toviyah, many people were obliged to him because he was an important guy. His father-in-law was Shechenya ben Arach, an important person. That person is a Jew. That means that Toviyah's mother was a Jew and his father was an Ammonite slave. So what does that make him? Kasabar nochri ve'ayved abal bat Yisrael havalad mamzer. This opinion, that's bringing this as a source, believes that a non-Jew and or a slave that has a child with a kosher Jew, the child is a mamzer. And so here you go. We have an example of this Toviyah, who is a mamzer, and he was one of the people that came to Eretz Yisrael. Good. That's fine according to the opinion that says that the Ayved and the Bat Yisrael who have a child, the child is a mamzer. But there's another opinion that says such a child would be kosher. What would you say there? And second of all, how do you know they had children? And actually, in the pasuk it does say that he had a child, because it says Vihochanan beno. But that child could have been from a non-Jewish woman, which is there's no lineage there. So it could be a biological child, but not a legal child, and so that doesn't count. So how do you know he had a child from a Jewish woman? We don't know. But two, and furthermore, how do you know that he had the children in Bavel and then they went to Eretz Yisrael? Maybe they were born in Eretz Yisrael and they did not go up with Ezra. So we abandon that argument, and so here's how we know that there were mamzerim. Ve'ela ha'olim mitel melach, tel harsha, kerub, adon, ve'imer, lo yachlu lahagid bet avotam v'zar'am im Yisrael hem. Among the people that came and made aliyah were people from a place called Tel Melach, a place called Tel Harsha, and so on. There's a bunch of places. Kerub, Adon, Imer. These are all names of places. And the thing is, they were not able to identify their father's house, and they couldn't even identify whether they were of Jewish descendants or not, but they came as well. So now we're going to analyze, in simple reading, these are all names of places, but we're going to analyze them, read them symbolically. Tel Melach, Elu ben Adam shedomim ma'asim lema'aseh Sedom, shenepecha leTel Melach. The people called from Tel Melach, not literally a place called Tel Melach, but rather people who their actions were like that of Sodom, which was turned into a mound of salt. Among the sins of Sodom were all kinds of illegal relations, and so these people, whoever they are, they have some mamzerim mixed in there. So that's a proof. Tel harsha ze shekore abba ve'imo meshatakto. Tel Harsha, not simply a place called Tel Harsha, but rather referring to people that when a child says, Dad, the mother says, quiet, we don't know who your dad is, I don't know who your dad is. So meaning that, or she knows, but don't say. So the kid is from some unknown or illegal or promiscuous union. Also, mamzerim could be, right? Could be mamzerim. Velo yachlu lahagid bet avotam zaram im Yisrael hem zeu asufi shenesaf min hashuk. They couldn't tell who their father, who their family was. They couldn't tell if they were Israelite, because this would refer to foundlings that were in the marketplace. We don't know who they're, not their father, not their mother, so we don't know who the mother is. We don't know if they're Jewish. We don't know who the father is, so we don't know what clan they belong to. Kerub Adon ve'imer Amar bi'abhu Amar Adon Ani amarti yu Yisrael lefanai chashuvim kicheruv vehem samu asmam kenamer. Now these, which are also in Peshat 3 places, we're interpreting them allegorically and changing the order. Adon, meaning Hashem, said, I wanted Israel, my hope was that they would be like Kiruvim, like angels, but they act like leopards, they act violently like animals and not like angels. Or another version, which is a lot nicer, Hashem says, the Adon says, right, that's Adon here, that even though they act like leopards, they're still beloved to me like Kiruvim, like angels. All right, like parents only see the good in their children, and so Hashem sees the good even when Bnei Yisrael are not acting up to that expectation. Okay, so far that was the proofs for the various items in the Mishnah, but that leads us into a long series of agadot about improper marriages and the results that come from them. So anyone who marries a woman that is not fit for him because we're continuing this is a continuation of the same pasuk that we just spoke about. Someone who has such an improper marriage, it's like he plowed the whole world and sowed it with salt. When you put salt in the ground, it ruins it. They can't grow anything. It's basically destroying the world. The parallel is these people are sowing, having children, but these children have a devastating future. If they're mamzerim or unknown and so on, what kind of families are they gonna be able to bring up? What kind of values will they have if they don't have a good father, mother, nice family structure, nice community? They're instead promiscuous, and the kids don't know who their parents are, and people are mamzerim, and it leads to all kinds of other moral and family and community problems. And so these people, they plow, right? They're having kids, but these fields will not grow anything good. And how do we know that? Because these people, they from tel melach. Melach is salt, and harsha is to plow. See, they plow and they put salt. Amar Rav Amar Rav. כל הנושא אישה לשום ממון, הביאן לו בנים שאינם מהוגנים, שנאמר, בהשם בגדו, כי בנים זרים ילדו. Not only is lineage the only problem, anyone who marries a woman because of her money, he doesn't like her, they have no relationship, no connection, just to get her money, he marries her, their children are not going to be proper. As the pasuk says, those who deal treacherously with God, they will have strange children. Now maybe you'll say, all right, this guy doesn't care too much about family values, that he's willing to marry someone just for her money. So maybe he doesn't care that his children will be thugs. But at least he keeps the money, right? So maybe you say, at least he gets the money. Talmud Omar, ata yochelem chodesh et chelkehem. The rest of the pasuk says, and now the moon will devour them with their portions, meaning devour them. Okay, so his money will be devoured. Maybe his money will be devoured, but her money, the original, she was the rich one, her original holdings will still be there. Talmud Omar chelkehem, it says in plural, both of them. She ends entering a marriage also, that's not proper. And so all their money will be gone. And maybe you'll say, all right, the money will be gone, but maybe after a long time. Maybe they'll live with 50 years and they'll live in wealth. And even though their kids will be all degenerates, and they'll end up losing their money later. But for the time being, they can go on vacations and have a nice time. Talmud Omar Chodesh. That's why it says Chodesh means within a month. My mashma, how does it mean within a month? Nahman Chodesh Nichnav Chodesh Yasa Umamonan Aved. You'll see 1 month comes in and the month goes out, and already their money will be gone. It won't be long before this unfit relationship will lead to disaster for everybody involved. And so we're talking not only about legally prohibited marriages, but also marriages that are morally and personally corrupt. Amar Rabba bar Rav Ada, v'amri la Amar Rabbi Salah, Amar Rav Hamnuna, kol nosei isha she'ena hogenet lo, Eliyahu kofto v'akadosh baruch hu ros'o. Rav Hamnuna says, anyone who marries someone who's not fit for him, Eliyahu Navi will tie him up, and the Kadosh Baruch Hu himself will whip him. Ve'tana al kolam Eliyahu koteb, הקדוש ברוך הוא חותם אוי לו לפוסל את זרעו, לפוגם את משפחתו, לנושא אישה שאינה הוגנת לו, לכופתו והקדוש ברוך הוא רוצאו. And there's a braita even that says that for all of such people, Eliyahu will write and Kadosh Baruch Hu will sign on this document saying, woe to a person who causes his offspring to be disqualified, who brings a flaw to his family, and by marrying someone who is not fit for him. And again, Eliyahu will tie him up, and Hashem will give him lashes. Furthermore, anyone who calls other people disqualified, right? Guy goes around and says, "Oh, you're a mamzer, you're a halal, you're a asufi," and so on. Anyone who does that, and he also doesn't say anything nice about people, you know that guy himself is pasul. Often, when someone curses or says insults to other people, he's actually reflecting his own depravity. That very thing that he has a flaw in, he says that other people have that flaw. So that's a sign that he himself has that very flaw. And Shmuel says, in that very way, if he calls people a mamzer, probably he is himself a mamzer. That's why he's being so defensive about it. We have a long and fascinating story here about a certain person that was from Nehar De'ah, just some regular guy, and he went to Pumbedita, a different city in Bavel, and he went to the butcher there. He wanted to buy meat. Amar lehu habuli bisra. So this guy says, give me meat. Okay, he should have said please, maybe. Okay, but anyway, he says to the butcher, Amar le amru le netar ad shakil sham'eh de Rav Yehuda bar Yechezkel v'netib lach. So the butcher, the attendants at the butcher shop say, wait till the servant of Rav Yehuda bar Yechezkel. Rav Yehuda bar Yechezkel, great sage. He's usually known as just Rav Yehuda, second generation Amora, right, student of Rav and Shemuel, very important person. His servant was at the butcher buying meat on behalf of Rav Yehuda. He's a very important person in Pumbedita. He was the Rosh Yeshiva of Pumbedita. So the butcher says, wait till Rav Yehuda's attendant buys, and then we'll sell to you, and we'll take care of you. Right? Wait your turn online. Amar Man Yehuda bar Shevis Ke'el de Kadim li Dishkal Min Kamai. This guy from Nehar De'ah, he has a gruff character. He says, who is this Yehuda? And he makes a play on words of his name. Instead of calling him Yechezkel, he calls him Shevis Ke'el, like saying, Joe Schmo. Who is this guy? Shevis Ke'el is also a play on words because it means the something roasted or glutton. Who is this Yehuda, the guy who loves shish kebab, the shish kebab man, right? Who is this guy that he's so interested in me and he comes before me and he gets to buy before me, right? No, serve me first. Oh, I don't know who this guy is. Azalu amru le Rav Yehuda. So the word got back to Rav Yehuda that there's this guy in the butcher shop that he insulted you. Shamte Rav Yehuda excommunicates that Nehar De'ah guy. Amaru Ragil de Karein Ashe Abdeh Achriz Aled Abdahu. They told him, this guy from Nehar De'ah, he often goes around and tell people, oh, you're a slave, you're a son of a slave. And so, based on what we just said here, as Shemuel said, whoever calls other people names, he himself is revealing his own depravity. So if he calls other people slaves, he himself must be a slave. And so he made an announcement, this guy is a slave, he can't marry Jews. Azalahu azmeneh de dina lekamed Rav Nahman. That Nehar Da'ah guy went and he called Rav Yehuda to judgment before Rav Nahman. Now, Rav Yehuda and Rav Nahman are somewhat contemporaries, and in fact, Rav Yehuda is even a little older than Rav Nahman. Rav Nahman, however, was connected to the Resh Galuta. He was a judge appointed by the Resh Galuta, so he's a very, very important person. And so this guy goes to Rav Nahman, who is well known, and says, I'm suing Rav Yehuda. He put me in excommunication. He called me an Eved. I want to bring him to judgment. And so Rav Nahman or someone in his office sent a summons to Rav Yehuda, who was in Pumbedita. Rav Nahman's in Nahar Da'ah. That's where the guy was originally from. So there's a Nahar Da'ah guy. He went to visit and went to the butcher shop in Pumbedita, which is Rav Yehuda's home base. He's Rosh Yeshiva there. This guy went back to Nahar Da'ah and went to the judge of Nahar Da'ah, who happens to be connected to the exilarch who has all the power appointed by the Persian government to oversee the Jewish community. So that's, you don't want to cross paths with the Resh Galuta or Rav Nahman, who's closely connected with the Resh Galuta. And so this guy knows what he's doing. He goes to Rav Nahman, and Rav Nahman sends a summons to Rav Yehuda, who is in Pumbedita. Azad Rav Yehuda lekamed Rav Huna. Rav Yehuda goes to his colleague Rav Huna. Says, "What should I do? Amar le ezil o la ezil? Should I listen to the summons and go or not?" Amar le, Rav Huna tells him, "Mezal labi ba'elei lach lemezam mishum de gavrara ba'at." Says the truth is you're not required to go because you're a great sage. You're in fact even greater than Rav Nahman, and you don't have to go to a lower court, a lower rabbi than you. You're not obligated to go. However, but Rav Huna says, I would advise you that because of the honor of the house of the exilarch, a good idea to go. Right? He's the son-in-law of the exilarch. He works for them, and if you're going to refuse the summons, you're going to be on the bad side of the Resh Galuta. Not good for you. Okay, even though you don't have to go, I recommend that you do. Ata ashkeche de ka'abed ma'akeh. So Rav Yehuda arrives, and as we're going to see in the continuation, Rav Nahman doesn't recognize Rav Yehuda. They lived in different cities, and so they don't seem to. Rav Nahman does not recognize who Rav Yehuda is. It's just this rabbi coming, and he doesn't seem to. He might not even know that he summoned this particular person. Someone in his office did the summons. So the following conversation is happening without Rav Nahman knowing that Rav Yehuda is the person that he or his office summoned. So the Rav Yehuda comes, and Rav Nahman is building a fence around his roof. Amar le la sabar la mor lehad amar Rav Huna bar Idi amar Shemuel kevan shitmana adam panas al sibur asur ba'asiyat melacha bifnei shelosha. And Rav Yehuda says, don't you know what Shemuel taught, that when a person is appointed as a leader of the community, they should not be doing menial labor in front of three. In other words, it's not respectful. If someone becomes an important governor or whatever, and he's out there mowing his lawn, everybody's like, this is an important person. He's the governor, he's the mayor, and look how he's doing menial labor, building a fence. So it's not appropriate for you to be building a fence. You need to build a fence, but have it built. Ask someone else to do it for you. And Rav Nahman answers, I'm not building a whole fence, I'm just building a little fence. Gundarita, right? Just a small little thing I'm constructing. All right, so it's not a big deal. I'm not doing like a lot of work here. Rav Yehuda keeps pounding against Rav Nahman and makes fun of his language. He says, what is this fancy word you're saying? Gundarita. Nobody speaks like that. What, you don't like the words of the Torah? Ma'akeh. Why don't you use the nice, beautiful Hebrew Lashon HaKodesh of the Torah? I'm building a ma'akeh. Or, if you want to say the language of the rabbis say a mechitza, right? A fence. Why What's this fancy word using gundarita? This the fancy language is indirectly or directly making fun of Rav Nahman, who is now connected to the Resh Galuta. These are fancy people, right? As Resh Galuta, they probably go and get a high education, maybe even a non-Jewish education, and he's learning Persian. We're going to see a bunch of these words are Persian words, and so he has to speak to the Persian officials. So he's learning, proper Persian grammar, and he's kind of like showing off in the way he speaks. So why do you think it's so important? Why the Torah's language is not good enough? The rabbi's language is not good enough? You have to go use some foreign words? Now Rav Nahman, he sounds like he's trying to be a nice host, and he says, come sit on the bench. Says, what's this funny word, karpifta, that you're using? Why such a fancy word? Why not, you don't like the words that the rabbis say? Safsal or isteba, right? Nice, a Hebrew word, Aramaic word. Instead you're going and using this karpifta, which is from a Greek word. Most people didn't know Greek, especially in Bavel. Most people didn't know Greek. So he must have, he went and maybe studied in some school, or is involved in conversation with important Greek officials from Rome. Now you're like, you're so important, you have to use a Greek word, right? What's with you? Then Nahman says, come eat some etrog, some citron. Again, he's trying to be a nice host, offering him some etrog. Amale hachiyama Shemuel, kol omer etronga tilta beramut rucha o etrog ke de karyuha rabanan o etroga da mare inashe. He says, what are you saying etronga? That's how Persian. It's originally a Persian word. And that's how Persians pronounced it, etronga. So as Shemuel said, anyone says etronga, he has 1/3 of a haughty spirit. Well, you're making such fancy language, you should call it etrog, as the rabbis do, or etroga, as common people do, right? Either a Hebrew word, Aramaic word, that's appropriate. Well, you're so fancy. Amar le lishte mor an baga. And Rav Nahman's not learning his lesson, he can't help it. So he says, come, have a drink from this cup, a cup of wine. He uses this word ambaga, a Persian word. Amale misene ispargus de kariura banan or anpak amare inashe. Why don't you use a regular word, ispargus? This seems to refer to some kind of drink that's made from asparagus, some kind of juice theory kind of thing. Or anpak, that's common people say, be one of the people, be part of the Jewish community. You're trying to be such a high Persian official now. Amar le'tete donag tashkenan. He says, so now Rav Nahman says, my daughter Donag should come and pour drinks. Right? They're sitting around. I mean, Rav Nahman's being such a nice host, probably in his house, and they're sitting on the couch, and Rav Yehuda is there, and Rav Nahman, the host, says, let my daughter come in and pour us drinks. And even that, Rav Yehuda insults his host. Amar le hachiyama Shemuel en mishtamishim beisha. So Shemuel taught us, right? There's also this tension between their teachers. Shemuel is the rabbi in the Harda'ah, Rav Yehuda's teacher. So he keeps bringing in statements of Shemuel. Says, what, you don't know this? You never learned under Shemuel? You don't know all this important Torah? Shemuel said, we shouldn't ask a woman to serve us, especially in a way that would be intimate, pouring wine for someone, while she's coming in and pouring wine, they look at each other and might have an intimate moment. It could lead to mixed dancing. Not appropriate to ask a woman, go get some a butler to come and pour the wine. So he answered, Kitana, if she's just a young girl, she's not marriageable age, we're not worried about it. She's just a little kid, and we're not worried about that. Shemuel thought about that too, and he said, don't ask women to serve you at all, whether she's old or adult or a minor. Not appropriate. Don't even go there. And see, look how you're doing this. You're not careful. Rav Nahman said, do you want to send greetings to my wife Yalta? Yalta herself is a famous woman. She was a Talmidah chachama herself, and she was married to Rav Nahman. So Rav Nahman said, should I pass along your greetings, Rav Yehuda, to my wife? He says, how dare you do that? Then she's going to respond and say, she's going to come and say, maybe his wife was there or nearby, right? And says, no, then she's going to come and say hello back to me. And the voice of a woman is arva. Okay, usually this refers to a singing voice. But here he's saying, no, you shouldn't speak to a woman at all, especially someone else's wife. So then we ask, but you could do it through a messenger. I didn't mean that you should speak to her directly. I meant, I'll tell a messenger to say that you said hello, and she'll say, she sends her greetings. Shemuel dressed that too. And shoalim b'shlom isha. You should not send greetings to another woman. At all, even through a messenger. He said hi to me. Maybe he likes me. I like him, right? And this is will lead to bad thoughts and maybe even bad action. Don't ask about some other people's wives. What about through the husband, right? Through the husband herself, not a roundabout, like sending a secret message. Send it through the husband. And shalim b'shlom isha kelal. And this is not at all. The men can converse, the women can converse themselves, but not appropriate for a man to ask about someone else's wife, even to her husband. Shalcha debitu shari tigre dela nishaviyach kishar am haaretz. Rav Nachman's wife, that's Yalta, then sends her husband a message, right, to Rav Nachman, says, let this guy go, Rav Yehuda, do whatever business. Why did he come? You're sitting and you're conversing and offering him food and offering him drinks, and every stage he keeps insulting you, making you look bad, right? See what he wants and get on with it, so he can go home, so that he does not make you look like an Am Haaretz, right? The longer he stays, the more he makes fun of you. You don't know language, you don't speak properly, or you speak too properly. You don't know what Shemuel said about this. You don't know what Shemuel said about that. You keep doing wrong things, right? The longer he stays, the worse you're going to look. See, Yalta was, in fact, very wise. Now, so finally, Rav Yehuda amar le maishi ateh de morhacha. Rav Yehuda says, Rav Nahman says to Rav Yehuda, so what are you doing here? Why'd you come? Right? This whole time they're just chatting and talking and whatever. So he doesn't actually know why Rav Yehuda is there. Amar le taska de hazmanuta shedar mor abatrai. Well, what do you mean? You sent me a summons. I'm here. I'm answering your summons. Amar le hashtashuta de mor la gamerna taska de hazmanuta beshadarna lemor. He says, I have not even learned your speech, meaning I don't even speak properly. I don't even know what these teachings that you have. I'm not worthy of you, and you think I sent you a summons? I look up to you. I wouldn't send you a summons. Apek diska dehazmanuta mi behadye v'achvele amarle hagabra v'hadiska. So Rav Yehuda took the summons out of his pocket and he showed it to him. He says, look, here's the man, here's the document, here's the summons. You did summons me, right? Here it is, and I'm here. So you see from here that Rav Nahman didn't realize who he was summoning, or didn't know that this person was the same, didn't know that his guest was in fact Rav Yehuda, and didn't realize before the greatness of Rav Yehuda. Otherwise, Rav Nahman apparently would not have summoned someone greater than himself to come and be answerable in his court. But he said, listen, well, now that you're here, so tell me what's going on. What's the matter? Because if I just let you go without discussing it, without having some kind of procedure, then people will say, look how the rabbis flatter each other. See, he didn't even ask him any questions. You said, yeah, go, you're okay. So let's deal with it, because you're here, I'm here. So what happened? So they got to know what happened. And Rav Nahman says, why did you excommunicate this visitor from Nehar De'ah? So Rav Yehuda answers, he was insulting my agent, right? An agent of the rabbis. I sent my agent to go get to buy meat from the butcher, and this guy came in and is insulting me. Rav Nachman says, well, now, why don't you give him lashes? Rav used to, that's their teacher, used to give lashes to someone who insulted an agent of a rabbi. And Rav Yehuda says, I wanted to punish him more severely. Excommunication is even worse than lashes. Now, furthermore, Rav Nachman says, why'd you call him a slave? More than call him a slave, you decreed that he is legally a slave. Because this guy from the Harda, he was calling everybody else a slave, and we learned that anyone who calls someone a name, he himself has that flaw, especially if he doesn't speak nicely and give praise to anyone. And Shemuel says, whatever he says about others, that's really what's wrong with himself. Nahman said, yes, Shemuel said that you should suspect him of being a slave. It doesn't mean he's for sure a slave. If someone's going around calling everybody a name, so then you look into it. You say, maybe you are that very name. But it's not for sure that you can just make a proclamation, hey, no one's allowed to marry this person, they're a slave. In the meantime, while they're talking, the other litigant came to Rav Yehuda. This is a bit of a problem because you're not supposed to present your case to a judge unless the other litigant is there also, and they already started the conversation. But okay, we're talking informally, I don't know. So then the other litigant, the guy who did the insulting, said to Rav Yehuda, "Ledidi kari li abda da'atena mibech Chashmonai malka." You called me a slave. I come from the house of the Chashmonaim. Now this guy thought he's saying something in his own defense. I come from the house of the Chashmonaim, the kings, right? I come from good lineage. How dare you call me a slave? And again, Rav Yehuda is quoting Shemuel, says, anyone who says, I am from the house of the Hasmoneans, is a slave. As we'll see in a second, the Chashmonaim, the last generation of the Chashmonaim were very corrupt, and they were fighting and all that. And then Herod the Great came, and he became the king, and he killed off many of the family members of the Chashmonaim. He married one of the daughters of the Chashmonaim, Miriam, Mariamne. He married her, and then Herod himself killed his own wife. He was very jealous of and suspect of anyone from the Hasmonean house, rightfully so, because Herod was not Jewish and pro-Roman and so on, and so someone from the house of the Chashmonaim, if they got too popular, which happened, Herod would be threatened and would kill them off. And then they were upset, and then his wife was upset. Why'd you kill my brother? Herod did kill his wife's brother, so she was upset. Herod had his brother-in-law, because he was Kohen Gadol and he was very popular, he had him drowned in his pool in Yericho, and then his wife was upset, and so he had to kill his wife, but then he felt bad about it. And so in fact, it's true that Herod killed most of the Hasmonean family. So anyone who says, I'm a descendant of the Hasmonean family, he must be from a slave in the Hasmonean family, or from Herod, who is from bad lineage. And therefore, you just admitted, basically, this guy just admitted that he is a slave by saying that he's from the Hasmonean family. Now Rav Nahman is overhearing this, and he says to Rav Yehuda, I understand you just quoted the statement of Shemuel that anyone who's Hasmonean is a slave, but we cannot use this as admissible evidence because Rav said, notice he's always quoting Rav. Rav Nachman is always quoting Rav. Rav Yehuda is always quoting Shemuel. So there's tension here between the two sages and the two centers of Torah study. And so Rav said that anytime you have a sage that teaches a halacha, teaches a ruling about a particular issue, and it has to do with himself, it relates to himself. If he taught it before the matter came before them, then we can trust that that's a true tradition, and he really heard this from, let's say, Shemuel, and because he said it a month ago before this whole issue came up, and he said then you can rely on it. But If not, if he's only saying it now, we never heard we never heard Rav Yehuda say this in the name of Shemuel, that anyone who's from the house of who claims to be the house of Hasmoneans is a slave. We never heard him say that before. Now all of a sudden there's an actual case, and it involves Rav Yehuda himself. He's a party in the litigation, and now he brings this tradition. This tradition is suspect. Maybe you're made it up, or quoting it, or misquoting it, misapplying it to this case in a way that it wasn't meant to be, and you're just creating it here for this purpose. It's not trustworthy if you have self-interest in reporting this halachic tradition. So sorry, maybe not. It's inadmissible evidence. Amar lehaika Rav Matana dekae kevati. Rav Yehuda says, Rav Matana, he was there also and he heard it. It's the same tradition. Rav Matana lachaz yel nehadat lesas shaneh. Now, like miraculously, Rav Matana, he hadn't come to Nehadat for 13 years, but that very day, hahu yoma ata, he happened to come. Right? Well, just what an amazing providential coincidence. Amar le dechir mor mai amar Shmuel ki ka'eh hada kar'a aguda v'hada kar'a b'mavra. So Rav Yehuda can't say, do you remember what that Shmuel said, that Hasmonean is a slave? No, so he can't say that, because then he's like prompting. So he says, do you remember what Shemuel said when we were at that spot? He had one foot on the bank and one foot on the ferry, and he was telling us this halacha on that spot, right? It's amazing. They'll remember the halacha. He says, he's reminding him of what the halacha is just based on the situation that it was taught. Amar lehachi amar Shemuel. He said, Rav says, yes, I remember clearly. Shemuel taught us, called Amar bet Chashmonai Malka Ka'atina, Abdahu de la Ishtayur Minayu, Ela Hahi Rabita, the Sakali Grav Ramya Kala, Amra called Amar Mibet Chashmonai Ana Abdahu. He says, I remember it well. Shemuel said, anyone who claims to be from the house of the Chashmonaim is actually a slave, because Herod killed everybody from that family except for one young woman. He's referring to, probably seems to refer to Mariamne. We know this from Josephus. Is a parallel story. And she went up to a roof and called out, anyone who says that I am from a Hasmonean family is a slave, right? Because I'm the last one, and nafla meigara umita. She fell off the roof and umeta, and she died, and that was the last one. Both this version of the Talmud, this version, and the other version says she died, whether she killed herself or Herod killed her, right, is a difference. But the point is that she died. Herod killed everybody that was legitimate. Herod did have children from Mariamne, but he killed some of those children too, and in any case they would be illegitimate because Herod is from an illegitimate family. Herod's father is an Edomian, forced convert, so not even a good convert. His mother was a Nabatean Arab, so definitely not Jewish, not good, and so his children are not good lineage, and so therefore claiming to be that you're from the house of the Hasmoneans proves that you were actually a slave. And so now we have Rav Matana that backed up this tradition. Achruz aled abdahu, and this Nahardian guy lost the case, and Rav Nahman publicized that this guy is a slave, so he lost his case. Hahu yoma ikaraan kama ketubata ben Nahar. That day, many marriage contracts in Nahar were ripped up, because anyone else who was from that family of this guy, now if he's a slave, then everybody, all his brothers and cousins, everyone from that line are also slaves. If they're a slave, then that marriage was under false pretenses, and the husbands of those wives do not have to pay a ketubah, so they ripped up all the ketubot. Now when Rav Yehuda was leaving the Hada, he's going back to Pumbedita, all these families are all upset, and they pursued him with stones, and they're going to stone Rav Yehuda for causing such disruption in their families, and now they thought they were kosher, and now they're not. Amar lehu ishetiku shetiku. Rav Yehuda came back with a very serious threat. He says, listen, if you'll be quiet, it's best for you just to stay quiet. Ve'ila magalina alaychu had amar Shemuel tate zara ayata ika ben harda'a chada mekariya debe yona v'chada mekariya debe or abati v'simanech tameh tahor shadeyu halahu rigma midayu v'ka amta ben har malka. And so Rav Yehuda says, if you're going to continue to pursue me and threaten me with stones, I will reveal the following that Shemuel also said. Again, always quoting his teacher Shemuel. And it says there are two families, offspring, in Nehar De'ah. One of them is called the house of Yonah, dove. Another one is called the house of a raven. And how do you know which one's which? Well, the tameh animal, the tameh bird, the non-kosher bird, that's the raven, that whole family is flawed lineage. And the tahor one, the kosher one, that family is kosher. Now, he's talking in hints. Where he's not revealing exactly who this family is, of the good family and there's a bad family, but he's saying, listen, I know a lot more problems besides this guy, that he's an Eved. I know a lot about a whole bunch of families over here that have problematic lineage, and I'll talk about them too. If you continue to pursue me, it's in your interest to leave it as such and put down your stones and leave me alone, or else it's going to be even worse for you. And so they heard that. They took all those stones and they let them fall into the river. There were so many stones, a big mob that came that they actually made a dam in the big Malka River from all the stones that they were threatening to throw at Rav Yehuda. Amazing story. You see that another important point is that Rav Yehuda, even though he knew about problematic lineages, he kept it to himself. There's no great mitzvah to go and make people pasul. Who weren't before. This guy was a wise guy, and he's insulting, and he proved himself to be an Eved. Right? But otherwise, Rav Yehuda, his business is not going around and investigating. Oh, you're a Eved, you're a Mamzer, right? He'll leave it be as long as they also let him be. Next, Machriz Rav Yehuda be Pumpedita Atav Yonatan Abdeh. Okay, I just said that, except for some cases. Rav Yehuda did go to Pumpedita, and he did announce that some people were problematic over there. Well, I guess maybe not his hometown. In the Nahar De'ah, he says, I know some things about you, leave it alone. But in his hometown, he was careful to call out certain people, and he said, these two people, Adan Yonatan, they are slaves. Yehuda bar Papa Mamzera. Yehuda Papa is a Mamzer, Bati Batubi. This Yehuda Papa, Bati Batuvia, in his arrogance, he didn't accept a bill of manumission, and therefore he's still a slave. In other words, he was a slave. His owner tried to free him, but he says, I'm not accepting this. Who are you to free me? And so he didn't accept it, which means he's still a slave. Machriz Rava Mechoza. Rava in his hometown, this is again his own hometown, Mechoza, says, Bala'e, Dana'e, Tala'e, Mala'e, Gazaga'e. Kulam Lifsol, all these families are all flawed lineage. Amar Rav Yehuda, Goba'e, Gib'ona'e, Dor Dunita, Dara'e, Netina'e. Rav Yehuda said that Goba'e, the people from this place, Gova, are Gibeonites, and they're no good. And the Dor Nuna'e stands for Dara'eh, the people, a village of Nitina'eh. They are Nitinim, meaning, right, they're foreigners and they're not really Jewish. Amar Rav Yosef, Hai be Kobe de Pumpedita, Kulam de Abdeh, a place be Kobe, all the people there, they are also descendants of slaves. Amar Rav Yehuda Mashimul, Arba me'ot abadim, Amrila arba'at alafim abadim, Hayu lo lepashchur ben Imer, Vecholam nitmeu bekuna, Vechol kohen sheyesh bo azut panim, eno ela mehem. Again, another statement in the name of Shemuel, taught by his worthy student, Rav Yehuda, says there are 400 slaves, and some say 40,000 slaves that were owned by Pashchur ben Imer. He was a Kohen during the time of Yirmiyah. And these, even though they were slaves, but they rose in importance, and they were able to marry. They were able to marry into Kohanim, but there's a problem because they're slaves, so their children are not really Kohanim. So they got mixed up with Kehunah. And how do you tell who are good Kohanim from these false Kohanim? Anyone who is brazen-faced must be from this family, right? Because it's not appropriate for Kohanim to have this bad trait of being brazen. Basically, you want to know who they are? They all sit in a row over there in the Hadadah, and these are braven-faced people. These are these illegitimate kohanim. But this is the opposite. This disagrees with what Rabbi Elazar said, that if you see a kohen who is brazen, then don't speculate that about him, that he's a flawed lineage. Not true. He's of good lineage. As Yehoshua says, for your people are as those who strive with a kohen. One of the traits of a kohen is actually that he has to be tough. Kohanim, they're not gonna be tolerant, especially when they see bad things going on. They see immorality, people acting in the bad way. Look at Kohanim, right? The history of Kohanim. Pinechas, he is brazen face. He sees something wrong, he goes. No one else is doing anything, he goes and takes care of it. Many other cases as well. And so, therefore, it actually is a good trait in Kohanim that they have to be very tough on crime. And so that actually is a sign that they are a proper Kohen. Amar Rabbi Avin, Amar Rav Ada, Amar Rav, Kol Nasei Isha She'ena Hogenet Lo. Kesher Baruch Hu Mashrei Shechinato Me'id Al Kol Shevatim Ve'en Me'id Alav Shneimar Shibtei Ya Edut Yisrael. Matai Haveh Edut Yisrael Bizman Shevatim Shibtei Ya. Now back to what we started with. Anyone who marries a woman who is not proper for him, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes down and brings the Shekhinah, he will testify about all the tribes. These are proper tribes, but not about his family, as it says, the tribes of Hashem, a testimony to Israel. So when are they a testimony to Israel? When does Hashem testify that these are proper? Only when they are Shiftei Yah, tribes of Hashem, when they're proper. But if they're flawed, then Hashem does not testify about them. Amar Rabbi Chama, Rabbi Chanina, Kadosh Baruch Hu Mashrei Shechinato, En Mashrei Ela Mishpachot Miuchasot B'Yisrael. Similar statement, when Hashem reveals His presence, like in the end of days or whenever, He only will have His Shekhinah go upon those who are proper lineage in Israel. Shneimar, Ba'et Ahinu Madonai Yeh Le'Elohim L'chol Mishpachot Yisrael L'chol Yisrael Lo Nemar Ela L'chol Mishpachot. In that time of redemption, I will be, Hashem says, a God for all the families of Israel. It doesn't say for all of Israel, but only for the families of Israel, those who have proper families and not those who have flaws. Vehem mayu li le'am, the continuation of Pasuk says, and they will be my nation. Amar Rav Huna, zoma alay yetara yesh ben Yisrael gerim, de'ilu b'Yisrael keti behu, ve'iti lehem le'Elohim, vehem mayu li le'am, ve'ilu begerim keti, mihu ze ara bet libo lageshet elai, num Hashem, v'item li le'am, v'anuchi yeh lechem le'Elohim. Rav says this is the difference between the higher relationship that Hashem has to Yisrael as opposed to a relationship he has to converts. We're talking about converts that are not so sincere. Whereas regarding Israel, it says that Hashem says, I will be their God and they will be my nation. Whereas for Gerim, it says, who is this that mixed themselves up here to come and be to approach me? That they or pledged. Adav can mean like to mix or to pledge, right? Who are these people that come and claim to be part of Israel, but they're not sincere and they're not acting properly? So you see that Hashem says these are not my people, right? He questions their sincerity. Amar Rabbi Chelbo Kashim Gerim Yisrael Kesapachat Shlema V'Neva Ger Alehem V'Nispechu Al Bet Yaakov Ketibach V'Nispechu Chtivatam Ve'Laset Ve'Lasapach. Rabbi Chelbo says converts are as difficult for Israel as a skin disease, as a scab, as it says that the convert shall join himself with them and cleave to them. It says the same word, nispechu, as it says regarding sadat, regarding a sore and a scab. So just like on a body, you have a body is all nice and healthy, except you have this spot there that has a disease. That's what converts are. They come in and attach themselves to Israel, and they are like a disease, like a scab. Apparently, is referring to converts that are problematic. They may bring in foreign bad ideas, be idolatrous or whatever, or they can be like a fifth column and go and cause trouble. Or they're not following the law properly and bringing down morale, things like that. There's another interpretation, the opposite, that says no. The problem is that they're so good. Converts sometimes, like the conviction of a convert is even greater, and converts, they keep the Torah so well that they make the other people that are born Jewish look bad, and so that's a different interpretation. This is a negative statement about converts. There are many also positive statements about converts throughout the Talmud. So Talmud talks about both, and it seems to be referring to different times and different places and different people. Sometimes converts are wonderful and add so much. Sometimes, when they're not sincere, they can cause trouble. So that's what this statement is warning us of. Baruch Adonai Leolam. Amen ve'amen.